I think there's a stigma with the fact that people can be obsessed with bodybuilding and they say, oh my God, you're so crazy. How do you do that day in, day out? But either whether it's an addictive personality or you love something so much, if you're dedicated, you should be obsessed to it to a certain degree because you love what you do. But some people will look on the situation and be like, I couldn't do that. And it's like, well, that's because you don't love it. My name's Helena. I'm a female bodybuilding athlete and I compete in the bikini category. For me, I actually found bodybuilding completely by accident. I was thinking of doing powerlifting and then they said to me, well, you've got a physique for bodybuilding, have you thought of that? And I never really knew anything about it. So I did some research. A couple of my friends had competed once and I looked into it and I thought maybe I could try this. I'd never dieted. I was always up and down, very slim, very skinny, and I didn't really have any shape to me at all. And I'd always wanted to be in shape and have something. Being committed to going to the gym, doing all these exercises I hadn't done before, and realizing that my body was changing in a way that I've always wanted it to. So in 2012, there was a few things that happened in my life. Went to the doctors eventually, well, finally they came to me, diagnosed with anxiety, depression and PTSD. Now, for years, we thought, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I am depressed, I am anxious, and I had PTSD. And then it wasn't until a couple of years later that when we were talking to people, we realized that actually there was something else. There was more to this than just being depressed because I was so manic. One time I'd be happy, within minutes I'd be sad. If something disappointed me, I could be devastated. And that varying of emotions didn't really make sense. So we saw a specialist and they said, have you heard of borderline? And I said, no. And they said EUPD or borderline personality disorder. When they then told us, you know, there's things to do with photographic memory, having childlike issues and moments where your emotions are so much that you can't help but just cry or act out of impulse. And things started to add up and we thought, okay, this makes sense. So I got the diagnosis and still for years I wasn't well. I was binge drinking. I couldn't really go to school. I left school quite early because things got too much there. And when I went into work, I could only work a certain amount of hours. If I worked 8 hours, I would go home and be up all night and then I'd expected to be in work the next day and I'd go in and I'd be tired within 2 hours and then I'd have an episode. When I do too much, it's too much overload for the senses and I just become a mess basically. If you're happy, I'm ecstatic. There's like no real in between. It's very much like you can be emotional, but then my emotions are out here and then I also have a physical side of it. So if I'm happy, I will feel it so happy all over. But then if I'm sad, I literally want to sit on the floor and curl up in a ball and I won't move. I would have an episode when I'm out or I'd break down crying for no reason and people would not understand why. They think, oh my God, this girl's 20 years old and she's crying over nothing. When actually it was a condition that I couldn't help. And then with bodybuilding, because of the fact of being so dedicated to it, regardless of how I felt, I had to go to the gym. And if I was upset, I'd want to go and train. If I was happy, I'd want to go and train. So kind of regardless of what borderline would do to me, the gym was always there, whether it was my way of enjoying life or my way of escaping it. So I could put my headphones on, put my music on, and just focus on what I was doing and I'd forget everything that had gone on that day. And I'd come out of it and I'd be happy again because I'd left everything that affected me in that moment at the door when I walked in. As I progressed, I actually was put into recovery because of the gym. So I'd been very ill for about 6 or 7 years mentally, hadn't really been able to find anything that made me happy. And when I came out, I felt quite liberated and I didn't really think it would have that much of an effect on other people. But I was talking about it more in public and on Instagram. And then I had people coming forward saying, I've just been diagnosed with borderline. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'd say, look, you know, go and get help. But the main thing is, do you train? Because the feeling I get from training Whether I was angry, I'd go to the gym just to try and lift something to make me feel better, and it made me feel so much better. And like now I've got people who come up to me saying, I want to compete, I want to pose, or I want to learn to train properly, I want to lift like you, I want to look like you. And I say to them, you've got to do it for yourself. You're not going to look like me, but you can build your own version of that. And I mean, people can look on bodybuilding and say it's so unhealthy, it's not a sustainable sport, it's full of drugs and stuff like that. But really, if you do things the right way, you can get so much more than a good body or a trophy. I never really thought I could be confident within myself, and bodybuilding gave that to me. It has showed me that there is so much more to life than just going to work and partying, and it realised that life is really whatever I can make it. If I want to do bodybuilding, I can do bodybuilding. And if bodybuilding is what makes me happy, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to be happy. I'm allowed to dedicate all my time to it. So whereas I used to turn to a bottle, I now turn to a barbell, and I'll sit there and lift for an hour and a half. And now I can come and pose if I want to, instead of just training. So if I don't feel up to it, I'll try and do some posing. But it also reminded me that I am who I am, and I can use whatever borderline is to improve who I am as a person. I've used every single part of my journey with that to push myself more in bodybuilding. And for me, thinking about the trophy at the end is much more important than someone or something upsetting me, even for 5 or 10 minutes. The whole arena was stacked. It was about 300 or 400 people. And I had no idea until I went out there what it would look like on stage. And I remember getting on stage and seeing all these people, and I really didn't care. And I thought I would really be so worried. But yet bodybuilding gave me that confidence. And then they said, right, it's time for awards. So you go up the back, you line up. And they called out third. And I was like, okay, that's cool. They called out second, which was one of my friends at the time. And I ended up clapping for her. I was so happy. It didn't occur to me that my name would be called next. I was just standing there, and I remember just not thinking about anything. And then I heard my number and my name, and I just remember thinking I actually effing did it. Like, me faking that confidence and telling myself for at least 3 or 4 months of that prep that I look good, I'm gonna be good, I'm gonna do my best.
We have a round of applause for your category winner. Final pose.
And then I won. I sat there for a couple of hours, and I literally laid on the floor holding my trophy. I literally sat there and I was like this the whole time. And I just looked at it and I just thought how much work I'd put into it, but then also how mentally I held on. There were times in that prep that I just wanted to throw the towel in, and things got in the way, and I had some ups and downs, but I never let go of the fact that I wanted this so much. And even now, I've got this, and it's like, right, how much better can I do? Because I've got first place, and I can continue to do it and continue to better myself. I mean, that's better than winning. I can't lie, it's better than winning. It gave me so much more than just being like, yeah, you're a champion, even though it's weird to still call myself that. It really did change my life, because I went from being a shy, not talkative, not confident, whether it's in myself or about my body or how I look. I would still have been depressed in my bed, not moving. I wouldn't have gone out and tried to enjoy the day. And I learned in my first prep, I said to myself with my borderline, if I'm having a bad day, you've got to look for something good in each day. It means that every single day there's something that I can do that will better me. And that's where bodybuilding taught me so much more about myself than I've learned in 8 years of being ill. I would never have thought that a sport could teach me things, but it's taught me that dedication and drive and putting yourself out there can give you so much in return. Since working here, I've never laughed so much. I've never been so consistently happy. And that's because I'm training hard, I'm eating well, I'm surrounded by good, like-minded people, I've got a good job, And it's the little things like that that make me so grateful that I didn't listen to I didn't act all the time on the suicidal thoughts. I put myself in hospital several times because I was so ill. And now I'm so grateful that I never went through with it. Because if I had gone through with it, I would never have won. I would never have actually enjoyed my life as I have. And now I've got so much more like vision towards the future. Before it'd be like, I've got a couple of years, like that's what I'd have in my head. Now I've got like a whole 10-year plan. And then who knows what will happen. I might still be bodybuilding at 50. But yeah, I just love it, so. That's cute. Yeah. It's actually, not really. They've got swords now. I'm really jealous. It's so annoying. At PCA, when I was competing, they didn't do swords, and now they're doing swords. Yeah, definitely, 100%.